Hi, I'm Dawn Hindle, Creative Director at Pikes Hotel in Ibiza, and you're listening to the House Culture Podcast. House Culture.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the House Culture Podcast, hosted by me, the Managing Editor at House Culture, Matt Rouse. It's great to be back with Season 2, and we at House Culture are ecstatic to be able to bring a little bit of the club directly into your home. I want to say thanks to everyone who gave our second season launch episode a listen. It was a big one, as we sat down with ex-House Martin, former Dubcat and current Fat Boy, Norman Cook. We talked about all things ranging from his love of art, why Ibiza and Glastonbury are so special to him, and the differences between his stage show and club gigs. Add it to your playlist if you haven't checked it out already. Also, if this is your first time you've tuned into the podcast, first of all, welcome. And second of all, please make sure you have a dig through our back catalogue of episodes, which feature interviews with the likes of Brandon Block, Andy Manston, Terry Farley, Nick Muir, and many more. And if you've only just stumbled across House Culture and want to get to know us a little better, as I always say, we are a collective of house music fans who have come together through our mutual love of the beat to celebrate the spirit of house music. Instagram is where the party happens, and you can find us there at House Culture Net. Follow that and you'll get a daily dose of all things related to this scene we know and love. So let's get on with this episode, shall we? In this one, I'm delighted to say that we chat with Dawn Hindle, who has been an integral part of the Ibiza scene for the past 25 years, one of the originators of the outrageous Manumission brand, co-founder of Ibiza Rocks, and now creative director at the legendary Pikes Hotel. We talk about what drove Manumission to Ibiza from its birthplace in Manchester.
It became a little bit violent, really. It went from being this sort of fun-loving party into something that you never quite knew what was going to happen.
What promoting on the island was like in those early years.
But we were just having the time of our lives. It was quite bizarre. We actually didn't even see it as a job until about 5 or 6 years later. Because to us, we were just having a great time.
How Manumission became one of the biggest parties in the world.
We had a whole team of New York strippers. You know, it was just crazy. Everything just escalated because the more we enjoyed creating things, the more we added on.
And why Pikes Hotel is such an important part of Ibiza.
I think Pikes really represents old school Ibiza to me. It's very authentic. It's an old Ibiza thinker. And to me, the last thing I'd ever want to see is a complete globalisation of Ibiza.
So get yourself checked in, grab a stool at that poolside bar and prepare yourself for some authentic Balearic vibes. This is Dawn Hindle.
House Culture.
Hi Dawn, thank you for sitting down with us at the House Culture Podcast. We're honoured to have you on board and take part. Obviously, you're the creative director at Pikes Hotel. You're also behind some of the biggest clubbing brands on the island of Ibiza. I'm thinking of Manumission, Ibiza Rocks. But we always like to start at the very beginning to try and understand where it all started. So if we could go back in time and talk about you studying architecture in Manchester.
I did. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we've been in Ibiza for 25 years now.
Wow.
And prior to that, I grew up in the north of England. I went to university in Manchester, which was an incredible sort of student music scene. And I think that's the thing that first got me into music and gripped me, and nightlife, you know, because there was a lot of great stuff going on there. And when we were first in Manchester, it was sort of at the end of the whole hacienda culture. The sort of, you know, Manchester was full of all these sort of self-proclaimed sort of slogans, like on the 8th day God created Manchester, and it sort of turned into what a lot of people sort of referred to Gunchester, where it all started to go a little bit wrong. Yeah, because I think with what becomes a sort of industry comes money, becomes people making money in dubious ways with, you know, drugstores and things like that. So it became a little bit violent, really. You know, and it went from being this sort of fun loving party into something that, you know, you never quite knew what was going to happen. And there was a lot of gangs involved, I think, on doors, and, you know, it just basically, I think a lot of the great scene shifted to the gay scene. And that's where a lot of I know a lot of my friends felt quite safe there, and there was great music coming out of it, and it was lovely little venues. And so we did Manumission in a little place called Equinox, which was just off Canal Street, and it was a tiny little venue within the gay village, and it was a sort of mixed policy, but it had very blatant sort of gay advertising to sort of put people off. Yep. So, you know, it's sort of one of the flyers sort of said, you know, that someone had gone out to Manumission, discovered men gave better blowjobs, and left their wife and 3 kids, and had moved in with Bob. So it was very, you know, it was sort of provocative, yeah. And it's sort of like, I think it sort of set the pace for something a little bit different that someone hadn't, you know, people hadn't really done that at the time to that extent, and so we started to do Manumission there.
And what year was that?
That was oh my goodness, that was 93.
Wow.
So that was 1993.
Yeah.
I was a student in Manchester. My partner, Andy, had just finished. His brother had just finished modelling in New York and had nothing to do. So it was just the right moment, the right time, and it was a phenomenal success, basically. Yeah. I think it was just the energy and doing something different, and we had some great characters. The Divine David, who was a drag queen that used to take people out of the club and take them via the gasworks to his little apartment and show them his teaspoon collection. It was very, you know, it was very surreal. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, a lot of creative key people embraced it, people that were journalists that have probably gone on to be editors of magazines, people that were DJs, you know. It was, I think Manchester at the time was quite a creative scene, and that whole, probably the dance music industry had sort of spurned a lot of, you know, had sort of like, people had come out of that. And so the club went from being, non-existent to being voted number 1 club night in the UK by DJ Mag by about week 10. So it just suddenly, we had queues down the end of the road, people wanting to get in.
Yeah.
And then we had people that we really didn't want to let into the club trying to get in. On the very last night that we did Manumission, somebody tried to come in, the bouncers threw him out. He then came back with lots of cans of petrol, tried to break into the venue. They locked the doors, and he put petrol under the door.
Oh my God.
And tried to set fire to Andy, my partner at the time. So it was quite, luckily there was a lot of undercover police in the venue. I think there was in most of the venues. Right. And they stopped any incidents. But it was just something that, as you know, as a student, as someone, you know, we were just trying to create great parties. Yeah. And suddenly the reality of a sort of much darker side of nightlife came in, and we just thought, this isn't what we're here to do, and we don't want to get involved in this. And you know, so basically Andy and Mike went on holiday to Ibiza. I was doing my exams. I posted over all the press that we'd had from the UK, and it just meant they could get into the clubs for free. I don't think they actually realised if you knew the right people, you could get in for free anyway. You know, it was just a new into Ibiza scene. And then we realised that we actually had a whole summer off of doing nothing, you know, because we're students, and decided, why not spend the summer in Ibiza? Yeah. We'd had 2 people who were called David and Bernadette, who were body painters, and they'd got married the summer before, and they'd gone on honeymoon to Ibiza. And they said, you know, you should really try it, because it's just an amazing place. The clubs are incredible. So basically, based on that just on that recommendation, we all went to Ibiza. And then we did the old classic Ibiza thing of never leaving Ibiza, you know, 25 years later.
So that when you went over there that time, was that the first time you'd been to Ibiza?
I think it was probably the first time I'd even heard of Ibiza, if I'm honest. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't that I was a lover of Spain or you know, I just really thought it was a great alternative to a summer in Manchester, basically.
Of course, yeah.
So we went over there. We got offered quite a few club nights for some bizarre reason, one in Pasha, a couple of other places. Then we got offered a Monday night in what was Coup at the time, which is now Privilege, which was a giant aircraft hangar of a building, and everyone that we knew said, don't do a Monday night, it'll never work. Don't do Coup because that's disastrous and hasn't got anything good. So we went against the grain, and because we just liked the venue. It was almost like walking into a Disneyland for adults. It had the giant swimming pool. It's bigger than any club we'd ever seen. We actually did go on to get voted the biggest weekly club night in the world in the Guinness Book of Records. Wow. And so because of its size, and we were getting 10,000 people a week coming through the door. So it went from 1994, which was the first summer, again, just coming up with some great marketing ideas, I think. Such things as, people were paid a day rate, which was probably the equivalent of like £5 a day at the time, to walk around and hand out flyers for the clubs. And we just thought that was crazy. What we should be doing is paying people for everybody they got into the club. So we sort of got people to write a little mark on it, and before you knew it, we had thousands and thousands of people in the club. And so it just started from there, and we started in a very tiny little part of the club, which was the Coco Loco bar, which was the gay heart where all the drag queens used to hang out. And we started there, and within a couple of months, we'd taken over the whole club.
Wow, and that was just in that first season? That was
within a few weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was quite a bizarre, heady success in a way that we didn't expect.
And having that success from Manchester, it was that success that was opening the doors when you got to Ibiza, getting all of those club nights.
It was. I think, at the time, obviously the world has changed, and we're now very much in a digital world, but, that was when printed magazines and things really mattered. So something like a mix mag or a DJ, people bought them religiously. They read them, and they probably chose their nights out dependent on what was, top of the list. So I think, it definitely helped.
And in terms of every year and every season, there was kind of taking it to the next level. Did you always feel like a pressure in terms of like what you're trying to put on, or was it just a natural progression?
No, we felt absolutely no pressure whatsoever. We were just having the time of our lives. We literally, it was quite bizarre. We actually didn't even see it as a job until about 5 or 6 years later, because to us, we were just having a great time. All we ever did was wanting to put on parties that we wanted to go to. So when the party didn't exist, we'd make it, and we just thought that was quite normal. So, and then it just, as we started to make a little bit of money, we could do things that we'd never thought we could do. We did all sorts of crazy things. We decided we wanted a team of Cuban acrobats. So we got on a plane to Cuba, and we went around all the Cuban circus schools, and we recruited 12 Cuban acrobats, and we had to talk to the Cuban government and pay them money to bring them to Spain. And then we went to New York, and we decided that we loved the band Fisher Spooner. They did some great music at that time, which I think was way beyond its time. And, we met Casey and Ian, and we said, do you want to come and spend a summer in Ibiza? And they went, yeah, of course. So we set a whole load of shows around them, and we decided we wanted to do giant stage sets, which is something that I always personally loved, studying architecture. And we got introduced to Mark Fisher, who was the guy that had done the Pink Floyd tour with the giant pink pigs. Yeah. And he'd done U2's Zoology or Zootopia, I think it was, tour. And so we went to him, and he started to do the stage sets for us. Before you knew it, we were a massive theatre production, and every penny we were making was going into the parties.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing like it. No one else was really doing what you were doing. It's all of that, the attention to detail and the amount of different things going on, like you say, acrobats and, cutting edge music. And what was the overriding ethos of Manumission, would you say, if you had to sum that up?
Manumission comes from the Latin word manumit, and it means to set a slave free. And so everybody always thinks it's because we came from Manchester, but it isn't. But it would basically, the whole thing was that you could just be free to be whoever you wanted to be. And at the time, in Ibiza, it didn't matter. I mean, it's changed quite a lot in the last couple of years. Now it's all about the VIP table. But at the time, you would have, you'd have a prince from Italy next to a bricklayer from Blackpool, next to John Paul Gaultier, next to Kate. It really did not matter. It was all about the atmosphere and just about letting all your inhibitions go and just having a great time. So that was like the real basic principle behind it. But we just sort of got carried away and did all the things that we'd always wanted to do. So we saw it. My favourite quote, I think, was in The Guardian, and it was surreal clubbing for the previously disenchanted. And that sort of sums it up to me. It was just showing people a good time, and it just came really naturally, I think, to all of us, and we just enjoyed it.
Putting on those parties, like you say, that you'd have wanted to go to yourself. Absolutely. And in terms of like the music, what kind of came first, would you say? Was it just like a fun time music policy and that was that, or was it all about the production, or just a mixture?
It was a mixture. I mean, the music to us was a soundtrack to everything that was going on in many ways. There were different areas. I mean, we couldn't afford, we spent so much money on everything else. We had like a team of 50 entertainers that we created costumes for, we just crazy things. And so we had a whole team of New York strippers that we brought. It was just crazy. Everything just escalated because the more we enjoyed creating things, the more we added on and the bigger the bill became. So we sort of thought, well, the music's really majorly important, but people are coming anyway. And we didn't, at the time, it was all about the big DJ, so a lot of the people who were friends of ours, people like Carl Cox, Pete Tong, Norman Cook, Judge Jules at the time. It was even the era of like Brandon Block and Alex P were massive in Ibiza. So, we basically said, if you want to play, you can come play for us, but we can't pay you what everyone else is paying for you. But in return, we're not going to advertise you. So basically, people came to Ibiza. Not Ibiza Rocks, Manumission slipped into my new domain, into Manumission by basically the love of the party, understanding that it would be great music and that it would be a surprise. So we got all the world's top DJs playing for us. One of my favourite things was, we used to get Norman Cook playing in the toilets, and he'd hand out the toilet paper, as people, and it's so funny because I see now, like places like High in Ibiza, they've created this whole disco toilet with the thing, and I think it's probably a lot of people's favourite place. And you look back and that came from Norman Cook in those toilets. He used to have some little Argentinian guy that had like a I think it was Jägermeister slammer machine down there, where you put like what the equivalent of a euro was in at the time at one end, and he'd invented it set on fire, and then you slammed it at the other end, and it was like a sort of fairground attraction ride. It was very very fun.
And did it get to a point where it just became too big, too massive a beast to wrestle with, or
it became I think we went through so many chapters in Manumission, I think, and there was the whole notorious thing of obviously Mike's brother and his wife Claire having live sets on stage, that we then started to think, oh my goodness, this is killing the club, because we've got all these like 18 probably year-old boys, lining up to see a sex show. This isn't what we're doing. So one week we just got really fed up with it, and we moved it to the back room. We just put their mattress on the back room, and we literally we built a DJ box right in the middle of the swimming pool, and that was the end of that. And and I think things like that just really kept the club going. Because otherwise it was sort of, I think it's one of those things, once you get something that becomes very successful, you become acutely aware that it could become a victim of its own success. So you have to keep reinventing. And I think that's one of the things that we've always managed to do, is see trends and see when things are starting to maybe be a victim of their own success, and change it up before it dies a death.
Try and be ahead of that curve in that way.
And that probably comes from having a very low attention span, I think, and getting bored really easily.
Yeah. So, I mean, what year was it that Manumission had kind of wrapped up in Ibiza? Was it?
We ran for 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
So it was 50. I mean, that is actually crazy if you think, for a 10,000 capacity club to go 15 years actually shouldn't be allowed, because if you look at something that is youth culture, it's way too long. You know, you have to sort of step back and somebody else needs to take up the reins. And I think we got a little bit bored, and we wanted to end it on a high, and we had issues with the club not paying us properly, and we realised that actually we wanted to promote live music.
Yeah.
So we went from being club promoters. I mean, we've never stopped really being club promoters, but we went to establishing Ibiza Rocks, which was all about guitar music when we started. That's why the logo is a plectrum, because it sort of very much was quite a defiant stamp against the fact that Ibiza really didn't rock. You know, Ibiza danced, and we were trying to rock, and it was so wrong. And you know, I can remember at the time a lot of the DJs actually thought we turned against them. They were like, you're trying to kill the thing that you've created, and you know, why are you going? And it wasn't that. You know, I think Ibiza Rocks was all about getting excited about a new form of music. There was like really great live music coming through. You know, you had things like LCD Sound System, the Rapture coming out of New York, which was a really great sound that combined sort of like electro music but with instruments. And James Murphy, who's an incredibly talented, amazing guy. And you had we had people like Arctic Monkeys, you know, that were fresh. They looked like 12-year-old kids when they first played for us. We had Kasabian, we had, you know, people like Mark Ronson were just starting out. We had a whole band. We gave Mika his first ever gig, straight out of, you know, he trained to be a classical opera singer, you know. So a lot of these people we brought to Ibiza for the first time. We gave them their first gigs, and you know, they're still very closely connected to us now. And I think it opened the way for a lot of people that thought Ibiza had no relevance to them because they weren't necessarily into a big club. And at the time I can remember thinking, well, you know what, this big club thing has just sort of turned into a massive business, and it's the clubbing business, and that's not why we were in it. And you know, we were very much wanted to push forward in different directions, that we just thought we're doing new things, keep it fresh.
And so obviously you're bringing on all of these kind of young artists and building them up and whatever, like you've just mentioned so many names there. Are there ever a moment where you bump into these people now and it's kind of, you're a bit starstruck in terms of the level of their credibility now, or is it do you...
I don't know. I think I'm in a little bit of a bubble. I never really think that deeply about anything. I think we just sort of act, we do. And, you know, I think we've never really even probably sat back and thought about much that we've ever done. I think we just keep striving forward to do something that, you know, we really, really feel passionately about. And, you know, there's a lot of people that we've had that have gone on to become, you know, giants, people in their own realm. I mean, you know, we used to do tiny little parties with Idris Elba, who's probably now one of the biggest actors in the world, you know. We've done, you know, Mark Ronson, you know, we were with him having dinner, you know, around the time that Amy Winehouse had just died. And, you know, he'd obviously done her albums. And, you know, there's a lot of people that have gone on to do incredible things. That, you know, Jarvis Cocker played for us last year. He's hopefully going to do a residency for us next year. Ed Sheeran, you know, has done numerous gigs for us and was really, you know, he was a tiny little kid with a guitar. And now, you know, he's working with every major artist in the world. People like Stormzy. I mean, Stormzy has outgrown us. You know, he still came back this year, but I mean, he is too big a public figure for us to even stage these days, you know. And it's incredibly inspiring to see how well all these people are doing, you know, because you really, really recognise a great artist when you hear it, you know. I remember my son, who's now 18, is actually on tour with the Specials. He's the drum tech. But he came to some of the gigs, and he was just so excited about this little band. And we were like, boy, who are these people? you know. And he was like, it's Rag and Bone Man, Mum. He's like incredible. He's got the best voice. And I can remember just being absolutely blown away, you know, just thinking, how is that guy creating that sound?
Yeah.
You know, so I think those moments, you know, we had people like Madness play, and I can remember just being up on that VIP balcony with all my friends when they were singing, you know, My House in the Middle of My Street, and it was that sort of like almost that sort of anthem. Oh gosh, I can't even say it.
Anthematic.
Yes, moments where you sort of you go, oh my God, actually, you know, we've done all right here. This is really nice, you know, and everyone's having a massively incredible time. And then you feel a little bit proud for a moment, and then you forget about it.
And in terms of like Ibiza Rocks as an entity and an accommodation and a space, having the pool and the day parties and all of that kind of, Ibiza, there's a lot more of that kind of happening now. Do you kind of say that, do you put your mark on it and say we invented that, guys, or do you think that's just the way it's naturally going to go?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether we've invented it worldwide, but I think we definitely invited it in Ibiza. And I think, you know, because I can remember we were doing Ibiza Rocks. We invited through a friend of ours who we do the bar with, William Crichton. He invited the people that own Ushuaia to come down to see what we were doing with Ibiza Rocks. And I can still remember them looking, going, oh my goodness, it's a great way to make money. Yeah. And we actually initially talked about maybe doing something with them in that hotel, and then the next year Ushuaia pops up, you know. And it's like anything. I think, you know, some people sort of like trailblaze the way and other people make money. Unfortunately, we have to somehow one day really work out how to do both. But, you know.
But if you're enjoying it, I suppose, then.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, obviously Ushuaia is an incredibly massive, can't even imagine how many multi-million-pound business, you know. But we are now doing pool parties. So we went from live rock music. It was probably, in a business sense, best thing that ever happened to us, because there's obviously a lot more money. There's actually virtually no money to be made out of live bands. You do it for love, you do it for passion, and so you know, it's a lot more profitable, but it's also a lot more current to what's happening in the scene. And, you know, the artists that we get are incredible. You know, we've been having a residency with Craig David, who is such an incredibly talented singer. He blows me away every time I listen to him, you know. So that's been going for quite a few years now. We have Rudimental, who are great sort of collective of people that bring great artists over. We've got our residents, Pat and Kirby, who are really talented. We've been doing the Stormzy Festival. We've got a lot of different artists, but we're very much now pool parties, and that works massively. And we've reconfigured the whole space. And it's really working. This year was the most successful year we've ever had in any business, you know. So I think that is testament to how well it's going. Yeah. And yeah, it's amazing. And
did the connection with kind of Pikes happen because of Ibiza Rocks? Were you housing a lot of the artists there? How did that kind of come? Well, I suppose if we kind of rewind a little bit, obviously you're already kind of very familiar with the island. What was your first experience with Pikes? Was there anything before Ibiza Rocks?
Yeah, Pikes, we used to take some of the DJs there for breakfast when they used to come over and play for us, and it was just one of those, it was iconic, you know. Tony I'd known since definitely the year we'd arrived, and he was the biggest womanizer I've ever met. He was, you know, I don't think anybody hasn't had their arse pinched by Tony. It was like ridiculous, you know. He was and so he had been that sort of, he's a dying breed, you know. Yeah. And he was like an international playboy, and he created this little gem of a old thinker that basically by the time we got it was sort of like in very much need of a lot of love and attention, and it was sort of falling apart.
I suppose it kind of aged with him in a way.
It aged with him, and he was like, when we bought it, he was 74, and you know, we went to him, and I think he saw that we were a good pair of hands to like pass it over to, good custodians in a way, and we literally realised that we were getting a little bit of Ibizan history, but also because we've been a real true rock and roll authentic brand, and what we wanted to do was bring that back. And Pikes has sort of lost that, and there was a lot of new hotels opening up, but the potential was massive. And it had such a rich history. I used to love Wham when I was younger. Club Tropicana is Pikes. So it's and Freddie Mercury had his 41st birthday party there, and Grace Jones had this 3-month affair with Tony and stayed there, and it was just literally, Bon Jovi had stayed there. My favourite, I think, was Zig Zig Sputnik. It's like, it was just crazy the number of people that had stayed at Pikes, and we literally were bringing the new breed of those people over. So whether it was Tiny Temple, whether it was Kasabian, whoever it might be, we needed to put them somewhere. And we were putting them in a villa in the hills, which was a great sale at the beginning. But the bigger the bands got, the less they actually like one another. And they don't want to hang out for a week on holiday with the rest of the bands. They want to stay in a hotel with service and then get out of there and go to the next gig. So basically, we decided that we needed to have Pikes. We went to Tony, and he was at that point he was too old to continue it. It would have gone to somebody else, and I think he liked the idea of it going to us.
Yeah, I mean, do you think at that point it lost its kind of shine? And
it was chinced up to the nines. I mean, literally, I can remember, because we didn't have a lot of money to do. Initially we didn't even own the property. We rented it for 5 years, then we bought. So we also didn't want to make it too successful, because if we did, someone else was going to buy it.
Yeah.
So we literally, we went in, it was full of heavy Spanish wood. So I just painted everything white to try and make it feel a bit breezy. I took all the floral decor down and put, great artist friends like Victor Spinelli, who does incredible black and white photography, that had taken all the pictures of the Manumission girls for us. So he kindly donated photographs for each room. We had other people who worked with people like Steve Emberton, who did a lot of the iconic old rock and roll photography, and I just started collecting, basically, like an avid collector of rock and roll and taxidermy and curiosities. And I suppose I just started to build up our own in a way, a sort of museum of curiosities.
Yeah, instead of running out of space at home, you could
exactly
buy a hotel and fill it with everything.
And it was quite funny, because I can remember one of the maintenance guys came around to my house, and he was like, "This is so bizarre. This is like walking into Pikes." And I went, "No, actually, Pikes is just an extension of my home. Just gives me more wall space to put stuff in." So it was, I definitely, with Pikes, I mean, it depends on brand, but I think as a designer, you just have different. I mean, I have lots of different styles. I could do sort of like 70s minimalism and enjoy that, but I think this is my maximalism, and more is more. And it just fits. It fits to me in Pikes.
And where did you kind of go in there once you guys owned it and were like, okay, we can kind of make some physical difference to the buildings, where you're like, I'm going to take a sledgehammer to this wall and do this, or we want to build something over here, and your architectural head on, I suppose.
I think the most difficult form of building isn't the new build. It's actually trying to retain the original character whilst actually updating and making it worthy for use, and doing that in a very, very sympathetic way. So everything that I've done, people actually, they know there's a change, they know it works better, but they actually can't work out what it is. And, to me, that's key with Pikes. It's completely different for Ibiza Rocks. That's Ibiza Rocks is huge impact, big wipeout changes, and that works there. And that's a very refined, stripped back approach. But with Pikes, it's very much, it's it's needs must. And there's a lot of very, very dangerous steps in Pikes. So one of my, it's a wonder that we haven't had any fatal accidents. So one of my things over the years has been to take out a lot of those. This year I'm actually taking out, Jarvis Cocker played last year, and he actually named the palm tree Pamela, because he said it was the first time he felt he'd ever played to a tree, because we had this giant palm tree really in the way. And people tripped over it daily. We missed out on an extra 2 tables in the restaurant, which when you've got a full at capacity restaurant 6 days a week is a massive thing. So I've just transplanted the palm tree, so it has a new location. So anyone that comes to Pikes has to come and spot the palm tree.
Spot Pamela.
Come spot Pamela. Yeah, she's not hiding anymore, but she's out there somewhere different location.
Cool. And I mean, it's obviously got that iconic status, the Club Tropicana you mentioned, just the history behind it. Anyone who's read Tony's book that came out recently, it's just got that rich kind of history that are you proud to be kind of having another hand in its history?
Completely. I think it just feels like home, I go in there, it feels like I'm sat in my living room. In a way I probably am, because I spend so much time there, but it's it is. To me, I love Ibiza. I love everything that Ibiza represents. I love it's almost like a curated collection of really interesting people from all over the world, and I think Pikes really represents old school Ibiza to me, all those things, and it's very authentic. It's an old Ibiza thinker, and to me, the last thing I'd ever want to see is a complete sort of globalization of Ibiza, because to me it's a very special place in the world. And I just feel like by us owning and operating Pikes, we're keeping a little bit of old Ibiza alive.
And I mean, just the carefully kind of curated nature of all of the nights and festivals and things that you guys put on, do you think that that's a new kind of angle for the island to take in terms of doing something that's a bit more individualistic rather than mass
completely
consumption?
I mean, I always almost think that we are a home for everything that doesn't fit in anywhere else in the rest of the island. It's like we are probably the smallest club in Ibiza. Can't say for definite on that one. I think James Blunt's got one in his home or something. It's probably like half the size. But we are absolutely tiny venue, and we our lineup within Pikes is put together by Sarah Broadbent, who's incredible. She used to run We Love at Space with her husband Mark, and she's got great vision and she's got a great musical understanding, and we really trust her and value what she brings to the table. And DJ Harvey to me is, I see him as the DJ's DJ, but I just love his music. It's like the one night that I religiously cannot miss, because it educates you. I mean, I know where he gets his music from, because Heidi, as manager, tells me about the bills that come in. But it's just, I love to be educated musically, and I don't find that hot. It just does not happen very often. And I think you can go into there. He's also not scared of clearing the dance floor, which I think I've never met another DJ that has actually had that thing, where he sort of like thinks it's a bit busy, so he maybe downplays for a couple of tracks so that other people can get on the floor. And I love that, because that isn't a commercial attitude, that is a literal love of music, and it's a journey. And to me, a lot of the best nightclub experiences I've had have been musical journeys.
Speaking of Harvey specifically, I think every time I've seen him play live, I've broken Shazam, because it just doesn't, it just will not pick up anything that he's playing at all. So I just need to give up, because my Shazam's now swearing at me saying, just stop.
I know, and it's so funny, because I actually refer to tracks as Harvey's track. I'll hear them like in some obscure place and go, oh my God, they've got Harvey's song here. Because it is so associated with Freddie's and his thing. And we have Pikes Records, where we've done 2 compilations so far, and they've both been Harvey's compilations, and this time we did vinyl as well, a Mercury Rising vinyl, because so many DJs just wanted to know what those tracks were, and I love that. That's my favourite night out. Yeah. And then we have other incredible DJs like Arthur Artwork, who, again, he plays all night long as well. And he is an amazing DJ. You know, we have the best nights. We do a great party with Guy Williams, which is called Flash, which is a sort of very open mix night. And that music's incredible too. And you know, we on the closing night, we had the whole of Sink the Pink and Savage, you know, all the drag queens swinging from the balcony, you know, swinging from the DJ box. Actually, we don't have a balcony. And you know, people like Jamie XX has been playing for us lately. Black Madonna's played. Trying to think of some of the other highlights, you know. Honey Dijon, I mean, I just think is absolutely inspiring and incredible, and he's like literally doing amazing things right now. You know, so a lot of these people, I think, have become part of the sort of Pikes family.
And do you think Freddie's at Pikes, that's kind of going to be where it's at forever, or are there any kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I love Freddie's. You know, we've got we've got a Void sound system. It's actually the same one that DC10 have got, and it is so overspec, it's outrageous. Because I can remember they came in, and being a true architect, I went for the aesthetic value of the speakers. Yeah. So I actually went for the biggest ones. So they were like, they looked like aeroplane like motors.
Yeah.
And he was like, you don't need all this. I was like, yeah, but I want it because it looks great. And if we ever get that one day where we can turn it up full volume and like literally everybody is going to be deafened by it, I want to be able to do that, you know. So we've got a way over spec sound system. We've got a DJ box that's designed by DJ Harvey. We've got the potting shed, which is probably one of my favourite little bits, where we always have our like little after hours lock-in. And you know, I think that came from our very first day when we got the keys to Pikes, and everyone that was staying with us having a little lock-in in that bedroom and go, this is way too big, this is the best house party I've ever been to, everyone should experience this.
Yeah. And
then, you know, they're turning into what in effect is a little club named after a very iconic rock and roll legend that slept in that very room. So, you know, it just sort of, it works on every level.
And just kind of what all of the different nights that you do, the kind of crowd and people that you want to attract to Pikes, how would you kind of say? I have seen the no, and no C-bombs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's how, you know what that came from. Maya, who we love Maya. She does all the programming now for the Silver Haze at Glastonbury, and she's been our door bitch for like 2 or 3 years, and she's amazing. And one day we turned up and we had the no glitter, no flip-flops, no under 25s, no C words and everything, and she sort of she added that little bit in. But it's true, you know, it's just the attitude. It doesn't matter who you are, what age, really, as long as you've got the right attitude and you just want to listen to great music. You know, one of the things, I think the Pikes is one of the most social places in the world. People come and they make best friends, you know, really make best friends, end up at one another's weddings, end up actually getting married, end up, you know, coming back the same time for the holidays each year just so they can be back together. So, you know, it really works. I think that's part of the thing. It's a slightly older crowd because, you know, I think musically that's what we cater to, and it really works. It's, I mean, literally, the dance floor is the who's who of the creative industries and music industry. You know, I can remember one year gosh, let me get this right. I can't remember who it was, but we had 3 of the biggest American DJs. We had Norman Cook, and we had people like Chris Coker. We had just that everyone was on the dance floor. Yeah. You know, it was like, this is a who's who of a dance floor. And, you know, those are people that actually don't normally dance. Well, not that you see them I'm sure they dance, and you know, but not normally in other people's nightclubs, you know. And so I think it's just literally...
And you as a party goer could be dancing next to those guys.
Oh, completely. And no one cares, you know, and everyone's having the time of their life. I think you get so lost in Harvey's music. Yeah. You sort of come out, it's a great workout. Yeah. Come out like 5 hours later And I just, it is, I think our customer base is probably, if I had to sort of sum it up, probably like early 30s, 40s, and just really knows their stuff.
Tick. So in terms of you've seen it kind of all in a way. Ibiza kind of, every year I go, there's something that's changed, whether it's like infrastructure or all of these things on the island. It's always developing, always changing. Do you think it's moving in a positive direction in areas? There seemed to be a period of maybe a couple of years ago, obviously you guys have got like the no VIP remit. I thought a few years ago it was kind of going to go down this route where everywhere is going to be table bottle service and a bit exclusive. It doesn't seem to have got that far.
I think there's been a rebellion against it. I think that's why. I think there are a lot of exclusive little enclaves of very expensive sort of walled off villa living, and there's also there are a lot of VIP clubs where they are actually charging 20,000 euros for a table, which I just think is absolutely disgusting. I mean, I don't think it's I think it's vulgar, if I'm honest. I think what you could do with £20,000 for charity. We do Choose Love event where we're helping refugees. Imagine what that bottle of vodka would do for hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So to me, I personally don't think it's worth it. And that's not the sort of, we're not about being seen with a giant bottle of vodka. You can do that if you want to do that. We do that in Ibiza Rocks. People buy it. But I just think there's extortion and there's having a good time. And it's completely, we put on with... We've got an Italian friend who has a festival called the Glop Festival, and he did an art piece for us which said VIP is a loser concept, and we put that up at Pikes. And to us at Pikes, we're just not really interested. It's all about being authentic and being real. And I think there is a bit of a backlash on the island for that, because people come to Ibiza, there's places to go. You go to Miami, you go to Vegas, you can go to Saint-Tropez if you want to splash your money around and have that sort of bling-tastic experience. You can also now do it in Ibiza, which is fine. People want to do that. Everyone's, welcome to their own thing. But I think the true spirit and nature of Ibiza isn't that. And I think, there's a lot is becoming about, the fresh food products, the locally grown wines, the organic way to live, the nature, the beauty of the island. And I think luckily that's not going to go away, because there's a lot of people that really feel quite passionate about that. And it is a beautiful island, and I don't think it's based on mainstream values of commercialisation. I think it cuts a bit deeper.
So in terms of the Ibiza season, that's obviously kind of lengthened now over the years. It now seems to be... Does Halloween count as part of the season now?
Oh, Halloween counts as the biggest closure of the season you could ever have, I think, in Pikes book. It is, I think it took me 3 days to recover this year. It was the biggest Halloween we've ever had. It was it was actually amazing. Pikes makes a great haunted house. And we had some incredible DJs. You actually never recognise anyone, which is amazing. It's best night ever when no one recognises you. And it's just so much fun. We had so many people. We had people flying in for LA from New York for it. It's an institution, and it very much marks the closing of our season. And our season is 6 months. It goes from sort of roughly Easter time, wherever that falls, to the 1st of November. And we could actually stay open longer, but we really want a holiday, and we also really want to do some little changes and snags to Pikes. And so we close. But I don't know, maybe once Pikes, if it ever is finished, we may start to do sort of more winter retreats, and I'd see it more as sort of creative workshops, maybe whether that's writing, music. We do things like a literary festival. Ideally, I'd actually quite like to shift that literary festival out of season and combine it with a lot of workshops, because our creative writing workshops have worked so well. I want that to cross over to film, and I want to do a podcast festival, things like that. So all these type of things, I really, I think there's a lot of scope for doing them outside of the main season, because Ibiza is a wonderful place, 12 months a year. You know, if what you're doing, if your activity involves going to the beach, maybe, you know, the weather isn't guaranteed right now. So it's, you know, but if you're doing other activities, it can be the most perfect place.
And you mentioned the kind of snag list of Pikes or whatever, or when it's ever finished. How will it ever be finished?
It'll never be finished. It'll never be finished because there's always something else to do. But I think, you know, this year we're replacing some of the bathrooms, you know, that have seen better days. We're, you know, we constantly do stuff at the restaurant because as we get busier and busier, you have to do that to allow more food. We've taken out the palm tree, Pamela, and we are resurfacing that floor. I'm actually taking out the sauna that has not worked for 10 years. Actually, it's probably not worked for 15 years, and it was used as a storeroom. That is out, and taking out the it was a resistance pool that hasn't had any resistance probably for about 20 years either, and it's got the biggest
Were these
motor
Tony's
ever.
installations? Were they?
You know what? I just couldn't part with them because I had a love for all these like weird things that so shouldn't have been there, and also I didn't have the money to replace them. So basically what we've done, I'm taking all that out, and I've decided what I really, really want is a giant mirror ball bread oven. So I'm going to attempt to make one, and I'm going to also do a mirror ball covered bar and a sort of little sort of Moroccan garden, which allows a more of an event space, really, you know, for when we do weddings or parties, and gives us a really great space to sit and have meetings. We're running out of space. We're just, you know, also people that come and stay, we've got too many people and not enough spaces. So I'm just trying to create new, great spaces where people can spend a little bit of time.
And can you extend beyond the boundaries of where you currently are, or there's no opportunities
I think
there?
eventually we will. We're still going through lots of licensing things. We are officially a hostel.
Are you?
Yes. So we are.
Bring your sleeping bags.
Yeah, we're officially a hostel because for a number of reasons, but we won't go into right now. And so we're applying for our 4-star license, which will enable us to do a numerous other things. But at the moment, you know, a lot of it is like, you know, conforming to safety requirements and things, you know, that were just, you know, 30 years ago it didn't matter, you know. A couple of years ago we had to make disabled access, for example, which is really difficult in a place that's on a slight slope with loads of steps, you know. So things like that, you know, and converting one of the rooms into a disabled room. But they're all things that, you know, you have to do. You know, it'd be great if I could spend a lot of that money on very visual items. We've rewired the whole of Pikes. We've redone all sorts of things that you just don't see. It's a constant battle with an old property.
And do you think there's still the spirit of Tony around?
Completely. We did ask him if we could stuff him and put him at the bar. He actually said no, which I was quite shocked. I thought he might go for it because he always sat at the same bar stool, and so it's really strange because people keep donating paintings of Tony that they've done. Nobody else can send us a picture of Tony because, you know, it's like he's getting to the point where he's in every room. I'm feeling like, you know, the ghost of Tony is very much alive. But I mean, his spirit lives on and it oozes out of the walls because he built it, you know, literally built it with his hands. Fortunately, he was not the best builder. So a lot of the building work that he did do, we are now, you know, replacing. But thanks, Tony, for that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about him installing the sauna, thinking, I need to have this sauna.
Oh, completely. Yeah, I actually can't imagine what he got up to in that sauna.
Yeah, no wonder you just get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Brilliant. And in terms of 2020, you kind of mentioned a few things, maybe doing things out of season and stuff like that. Are there any other kind of nights that are new, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing quite a few new things we've got plans for. As I said, we're going to extend the Literary Festival to become a literary and arts festival. We work closely with Irving Welsh on that. He's actually writing the screenplay for the film that's going to come out about Tony's life.
Wow.
So that's going to be a goodie. I've actually got a Pikes cocktail book coming out, which I'm actually really proud of because it sort of tells the story of 24 hours in Pikes via the cocktail. Yeah, it's what to drink in the morning, what to drink by the pool, what to drink for lunch, night, after. I mean, literally, there is not a time of day you cannot have a cocktail, I've realised.
No, there isn't actually.
There isn't, you know, It's always cocktail o'clock at Pikes. And I've got some amazing photography and, you know, we've worked everyone in. We've got a photograph of artwork jumping off the roof with a cocktail in his hand. We've got Harv sat round the DJ board, so it's just everyone's worked in there. We've got, Mika's Captain of the Night cocktail, so that'll be coming out, and I'll probably do a series of sort of promotional events around that, which involve drinking lots of cocktails, obviously.
Well, why not? Yeah.
We definitely. I think a little bit of me would die if we lost Mercury Rising. It's, it's a favourite night. It's funny. I'm probably going to go to Tokyo in a couple of weeks with Harvey, and we're going to do a hi-fi listening lounge in Pikes.
Oh wow!
So we're taking the Chez Fez. I'm going to set it up to be the first, pretty sure it's the first hi-fi listening lounge. Harvey's working on the sound with me. I want to try and recruit a Japanese cocktail man while I'm there that can speak no English, and we have those little cards that you point to for what cocktail you want. Not sure whether I'm going to come back with a Japanese cocktail waiter, but I think we might come back with some great decor and some great ideas.
It sounds incredible. Can't wait. We'll try and wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah.
What we always try to ask our guests is to pick 5 tracks as a recommendation for our audience that are going to a Spotify playlist. There's always a catalyst, one track that would have got you into house music, dance music, or just general electronic music in the first place. Can you just tell us your choice and your relationship with that track?
Yeah, there was loads of tracks that I loved. Most of them, I can sort of hum them in my head, but I can't remember the names of the artists, and they were probably quite obscure. But the one that really stuck in my mind, I can remember buying that album actually on vinyl, just playing it repeatedly, and I just remember the energy on the dance floor was Voodoo Ray by a guy called Gerald, and it literally, I just remember going, oh my god, this is almost like a new punk revolution here. It's sort of like, it was that sort of boxy dance and that Acid Nation, it literally, I remember going to raves and listening and hearing it, and it was raw and it just really felt right at the time, and I think that really got me into the dance floor.
A floor filler we asked for. Can you remember?
Floor filler again. You know what? I just love too much music. This was really difficult, but I think Shaka Khan, Ain't Nobody, just because it always feels so good. I think you can close your eyes. Been on so many dance floors, just close my eyes with that song. You can even put that on in the house and dance around your kitchen table, and you feel really good. Close my eyes, I can hear it right now.
And a Sunsetter.
Sunsetter. Now this was, you know what? It's weird because I've got 2 sunsets. I've got the I'm watching the sunset and we're going to go out tonight in Ibiza, and you sort of want to feel good, and that's sort of like Orbital Belfast, and I just love that sound because it's almost like a little bit of magic in the air, and you feel like, it's like a little tinkling in the fingers, something's actually going to happen right now, and it's Balearic in a way, even though they're obviously not from Ibiza. But I also think the other one, who's a good friend of mine, George, is Nightmares on Wax.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually love all of George's music, and we've done numerous nights with him, but I think La Nuit, in my Mancunian French accent, is just a great song. It's a great video, actually. Great video too, and that's my sort of like, sun's going down, I'm going home.
Yeah, we always ask for a tearjerker. It doesn't necessarily have to be house music, but you've chosen a really kind of emotional one in Robert Miles's Children.
Robert Miles' Children. I still, because I remember when he did that album, he lived in Ibiza, had young kids, our kids' age, and he did a boat trip, and I can remember being on a boat to Formentera where he did a press launch for that album, and being on it was just the most amazing moment as the sun's going down and children came on. And I think it's just got such a great meaning because at the time, obviously he was Italian, and we were very heavily involved in the club scene, and there was a lot of those Italians going to late night raves and driving home and just dying in crashes. There was a massive mortality rate, and I can remember talking to him about it, and that's why he wrote the track. It was all about those children that were dying after coming back from parties. So it was sort of very it was very meaningful, and it's a beautiful song, and I think it just reminds me of him.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
And a last tune we always ask for. So, you know, it's the end of the night. What track do you want to hear? You did tell me your choice, and now I'm like, somebody already has chosen that one, but we can talk about kind of there are different versions and
well, I think that's when you know you've got a good one, when someone else has already done it. But I think that Frankie Knuckles song, Your Love, it's just, I love it. I just love it. It's like I could listen to it at the end of every night. I think it's just got such a raw sound, and it's just so real, and it just is one of those euphoric tracks. You know, every dance floor needs that song at the end. But then I think a sort of slightly newer version, but still oldie but giddy, is Candy Staton, You've Got the Love, because they're very, very similar songs. But, you know, obviously I think the Frankie Knuckles one was something like, was it 86 or something?
Oh, it was definitely,
it was before,
years
it was
before,
at least 10 years before. So in my mind it was almost like that was the old version, Candy Staton was a slightly newer version. But I can remember we did a live broadcast on Radio 1, and Florence and the Machine was playing, and she did the first time she performed that track, the Candy Staton track. And I mean, I'm a sucker, I still love the original, and if I was going to dance, I want to dance the original, but I think that cemented it as being an incredible sort of song for me. Just hearing Florence sing it live for the first time, strutting across the Ibiza Rocks stage with a long flowing gown and that hair. And I can remember my daughter was like newborn at the time, and before she went on stage, she took her in her arms and she sang lullabies to her, and it was just like one of those, you know, wow, this is a good song. Yeah, and it's a mark of a good song that it can be kind of covered in different ways by different people and brought to new ears in that way. Yeah, it's just got a great message. I think a great song with a great message. Unbeatable. And the kind of final question we always ask our guests is, we are house culture and we live for the love of the beat. We're a collective of people that have all come together through this mutual love of just going out and partying and having a good time and living on that dance floor. In terms of kind of the house culture as a whole, and you've obviously been involved in it for 25 years on the party island that Ibiza is, what does it kind of mean to you, this whole culture that you're involved with? Did you ever think back in Manchester, those first Manumission parties, this would be where you are now? No, I thought I was going to be an architect designing buildings. You know, actually I was quite into interiors and installations, so I thought maybe I could be that artist living in the East End of London. But no, I think it's to me, it's all about the collective. It's all about the people. It's about the music and the people and like-minded souls. And I think it's just something that I think some people just love. Ibiza Rocks, the things like the artwork and everything was always inspired by the punk movement and that whole sort of aesthetic. And it's a sort of ripping it up and almost a slightly political sort of like going against the grain. And to me, you know, being in that early Manchester and loving that whole rave scene and that, you know, although I was slightly like just at the back end of it, it really was a sort of, it was almost like a bringing together of people, and music was the sort of binder. And I think it was having fun, you know, and shamefully enjoying it. And I think that's what we're still doing, even, you know, and that's the great thing about Ibiza. You can be any age and still be on. I can remember seeing at the end of Mercury Rising, actually it was at the end of Flash, it was Mel Batt's parents, who are both in their late 70s, were the last people on the dance floor. Wow. And, you know, I thought, God, you know, that's me. And I think that's when you know that you just really, really love music. You love that whole thing. It's just because it's not something that you're doing every other weekend because you want to escape from anything. It's just a pure love of music and like-minded souls. That's the perfect place to end on, I think. Oh my God, I can't believe it. House culture. That was great, wasn't it? Dawn has such a cool vibe, a real authentic spirit dedicated to pushing the boundaries of anything she is producing. I absolutely loved it. Thanks again to Dawn for fitting us into one of her flying visits to London.
There were some real eye-openers in that chat as well. I mean, who knew that they invented the flying commission system on Ibiza, as well as showing the Ushuaia guys a great way to make money? And how exciting is it to hear that Irvin Welsh is writing the screenplay for the film adaptation of Tony Pike's incredible biography. I cannot wait to see what becomes of that. Obviously, this chat was recorded before the coronavirus lockdown, so all opening dates for both Pikes and Ibiza Rocks have shifted back. Currently, Pikes is on the 1st of June and Ibiza Rocks on the 1st of July. However, depending on when you're listening to this, please check all details online before you decide on organising anything. However, saying that, you can grab yourself a little bit of Pikes Hotel right now, because the cocktail book that Dawn mentioned is out and available to buy from all good bookshops. Make mine a captain of the night, will you please, barman? And what do we all know that goes well with cocktails? That's right, people, sick beats, and you can find all of those that were discussed in this chat on our Spotify playlist. Once you fire it up and search for the House Culture Perfect playlist, you'll be presented with an extensive catalogue of tracks all curated by our wonderful podcast guests. I must mention though that Dawn's choice for her Catalyst track, a guy called Gerald's Voodoo Ray, is not on Spotify, unless you want the brass band Hacienda classical version. So I asked her to swap it out and she has replaced it with what is one of my all-time faves. That's 808 States Pacific. Once you've followed the perfect playlist on Spotify, please support this podcast by loving, liking, tweeting, sharing, by leaving us a rating or a review on Apple. This is really important and will help us to continue to create these episodes that we hope you love listening to, and that could also get you a shout out on a future one as well. Which leads me to say a huge thank you to the person who goes by the name of Manny Fresh for telling us that this series is helping them with their dissertation on the history of house music. Wow, we at House Culture are pretty humbled to hear that we are educating the next generation of clubgoers. We hope we can do the subject justice enough to get you a first-class degree. As always, make sure you hit up our Instagram feed at HouseCultureNet or follow the hashtag #TrueHouseCulture to be kept informed of all the parties that are currently happening in people's homes across the world. Man, that first party after lockdown is going to be huge, isn't it? And finally, you can reach out to me, Matt Rouse, directly on Instagram at DJ Matt Rouse. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and see you next time.
House Culture.